I want to start by asking you,
Please.
not actually about the show, but did you watch this past week's SNL?
No.
By any chance?
I didn't. And I know that Jane Wickline wrote a song, yes?
Yes, she did. And she calls you guys the greatest threat to humanity.
The child actors from Stranger Things. What? They are adults now. We have to destroy them before they destroy everything. The child actors from Stranger Things.
So how does it feel to be considered the greatest threat to humanity?
Oh, man. What I'm appreciative of is that even if we did have the capabilities of being the greatest threat to humanity, I don't think any of us really have the gumption to go with it.
So you heard it here.
I don't know if I really have that in me in any. I don't know how. And what was the suggestion that would be in the capacity that I take a. What was the.
So the whole bit is she starts out and it's like she's comparing.
Yeah.
She's singing about AI, right? She's like, we're
Yeah,
building
well, sure.
machines that are going to destroy us.
Right.
But you guys are the machines.
Oh, sick.
So
that's the reveal, is that we've
Yes.
been robots the whole time.
Yeah, that you're just like
Which
big
would be
weapons.
a banger of a reveal.
Yeah.
That's a show in itself.
That was season 6.
Yeah.
They've been Vecna was the only organic person, and everyone else.
The big reveal is that we've been AI actors the whole time, and it's
Yeah.
like the big like corporate like, guess what? We got you. And yeah, that's a show right there.
Yeah, I
There's
am
something.
curious though, like
Shoot.
as a performer, like being jokingly compared to AI.
Yeah.
But I know that like AI was a big thing in the SAG strikes, which
Yeah.
kind of delayed Stranger Things.
Delayed
so,
yeah, like crazy.
I'm curious about like just your thoughts on it. In general.
It's lame. I just, I feel like it gets to a point where you're just like, I don't really, everything's subjective there, and that's kind of the point of art and making things, making a show like Stranger Things, or making anything in general, especially when you look at film and TV. The whole point is that it's subjective, so people can have whatever opinion they have, but I don't believe that anything is art unless people make it. And I don't really think there's much to comment there unless people are pulling from their own experience or a shared experience. And that just is like the epitome of just like, kind of like, just like mindless, like robotic consumption of things. It's like, the pretty colors. And it's scary. I think there will be a pendulum swing of people being like, all right. And everybody has that conversation of like, where do we draw the line? Like, what's next? Like, what are we doing here? And what's standard and what's going to be the standard in 10 years. And that's the scariest thing, I think, is that people are like, okay, great, we draw a line here, and then 2 years from now, the advancements are going to be to a point where there's a fear that it gets to a point where it is unrecognizable. And I think that's kind of the goal there, that people who are enthusiasts of AI art are like, isn't it going to be great when you can't tell the difference? I'm like, that scares the shit out of me, personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just coming from a place. And also, I just don't really understand the desire that people have. Like, there's a weird discourse of a lot of people being convinced to celebrate the minimizing of workforces, which I think is crazy, because there's so many jobs involved in making art, and it's an army of people that come together to make something so special. And there's a weird cadence or a weird opinion that people have that I see consistently of like, oh, isn't this great that it can be made so much easier? I'm like, no, that's not the point.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no gratification there unless there's like a real big team of hardworking, brilliant people that come together. I mean, I just get to be in a room with some of the coolest people that even when you're talking about your crew, because it's attributed to people just looking at the screen and seeing actors and assuming that that's like the bulk of the team, when it's just scratching the surface and it's the tip of the iceberg, because actors happen to be in the foreground of the conversation there, because they're the ones that are like seen consistently when film and TV is being made. And there are thousands of people that work on one project, and that's, I think, what gets missed in that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think also like looking at a show like Stranger Things, it can't look like that. It can't without that army.
Without that army of people. Yes.
And you
exactly.
can't like get, I don't know, one of my favorite things about talking about film and TV is like the stories of the filming. Like in Lord of the Rings, it's like, oh, he broke his toe kicking the helmet.
Yeah.
You don't get that if it's like, oh, we put it into a computer.
Yeah, right.
And then
those stories are fun.
Yeah, they're exciting.
Yeah, they are.
So I mean, I would love to dive into, I guess, season 5 in general,
please.
because Dustin's arc is like one of the most emotionally heavy, I think,
Sure.
of the season in general. And I'd love to know what were the conversations you might have had with the Duffer Brothers ahead of time as to like where they were going to bring him.
I think they knew that something like that was in store from the end of 4. I don't know how much in advance they thought about taking a shift like that or shifting the relationship that had become so solid between Dustin and Steve, and or at least Dustin's dynamic with pretty much everybody in the show. There's a comfort there and a love that is very present that I love to do. I love to be a part of that because that's kind of naturally where I end up falling into. I as seriously as I take it, as much as I want to be kind of douchey actor and be like, I want to get this right, it is sometimes, it just feels like summer camp. It's just so much fun being with everybody. So being able to fall back onto laughing when I want to and absorbing and just like kind of like doing my normal thing of just exploding and trying to be as high energy as I can, because I usually have, I struggle more with containing my energy than I do with trying to like pull more out of it. And it's less a matter of, this time it's less a matter of less energy and more just channeling it elsewhere into unhealthier places and to digging into not so fun places that he inevitably has to go to when dealing with grief. And not just grief in the context of what's already been lost, but grief in the context of like, there's so much still that's so scary. Like there's anticipatory grief of understanding that this isn't good. And it's very likely that this won't be the same as it has been. That it's not the same as the last few times.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely like a sense of, I mean, obviously as an audience, we know that it's the end, but there's like a sense of an end with like all of the characters
I think
as
so.
well. Yeah, you mentioned, I guess, like drawing on like difficult places. Like when you're channeling like all this grief and anger, like how do you make sure you do that in a way that also like protects you? If that makes sense?
I don't know. I think one of the healthiest things to do in grief is kind of unpacking it when you feel the need to do so, and diving in and feeling everything that you possibly can feel and that you're naturally inclined to feeling. Sometimes you block it out for a while. It's not just a matter of being sad. It's like the kind of what you anticipate when you lose somebody. And there's so much anger. There's so much confusion. There's so many questions about like, all right, what next? What does this look like? And Dustin's in a position where it seems horrible to say, but there's almost bigger fish to fry than you losing your friend.
Yeah.
And there's a shred of it like, yeah, everyone's lost people. Maybe it's the first time it felt so present to Dustin because it's somebody so close to him and it happens right in front of him. So maybe that's very sobering. But Max is still not great. And that's like, as far as like the last year and a half looked. Yeah. It's something to me where I'm like, he's so caught up in his weird wallowing behavior that he fails to also properly grieve his other friend who's been in a coma for a year and a half, and that his best friend is losing somebody. Caleb's character Lucas is clearly dealing with something very similar to Dustin, but also seems to be taking it in a route that's less selfish. I don't really know where the blame comes in there too, because that's also understandable for Dustin in a way, because he hasn't really been equipped with the tools to grieve properly and the time to do it. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm curious, how like tuned in are you on people's reactions? Because I think there were a lot of people who were like, whoa, Dustin's like, they were like, what is this from Dustin? And then like other people are like, he's grieving, he's lost someone. So yeah, how in tune are you with that?
I was kind of hoping that it would be conflicted. I don't check a lot though. I don't look a lot. I've kind of, in the release of the show, understood that like there's always an uptick of like the show being promoted on algorithms and such, doing things like this, which is kind of just par for the course and comes along with the process of making a show. You promote it. And I don't love when my face keeps popping up on my phone all the time. And so I kind of distance myself from it throughout the release process, and maybe I'll dig into it a little bit more. But most of what I hear about reactions from the show are from friends who text me and family about like, they'll send me videos, because they're locked in and they're like, look at this meme. I'm like, great. I don't have to. You don't have to show me anything. I was kind of hoping there would be a bit of a conflicted feeling around it.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to come across as like, oh, poor him. Because he's also, because as much as that's true, and I think a lot of people can clearly see he's going through a lot, he's also being a dick.
Yeah.
And that's, I think no matter how much one is grieving, it doesn't excuse your behavior towards other people, especially those who are in your corner, people who are there supporting you. And that's, you end up cutting so much, a lot of times in grief, people cut out those who are trying to help them because they want to be miserable.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're not doing it right otherwise.
I love that. I feel like it needs to be messy.
Yeah.
It is super messy
for sure.
in the show, which I really appreciated. I'd love to hear about, you know, how you and Joe Keery, who plays Steve, approached, you know, this very different vibe.
very
because
different vibe.
I mean, you guys have been like inseparable in the past few seasons, and this felt, it felt tough.
It's tough for sure, but the thing is that the day-to-day still looks the exact same. It still looks the same for us as actors on the day, because we're still hanging out constantly on set and off. We lived very close by to each other during the process of filming the season, so we saw each other constantly throughout, and you just want to have just as much fun as you've had in prior seasons, and you want to just, there's kind of a familiar feeling to working with him that is, it gravitates towards just wanting to mess, like just to fuck around a little bit and just to have fun, and you don't really get the liberty of doing so sometimes we'll be goofing off before takes, and especially early on, they would yell action. I'm like, oh, I'm not centered in the slightest because I'm still just joking around with him. And that was a different approach. And so we would look at things and look at each other and be like, man, this is really sad because we just want to have fun sometimes. And that's like the natural drive there. And there is even glimpses of that in the 4th episode when we drive through the rift into the Upside Down in his car. There's the normal excitement of us screaming and yelling and insulting each other, but with playful banter. And I think it's one of those moments where even in his weird little like pent up rage, when all is said and done and when everything else like kind of goes crazy around him and he doesn't really have time to actively try to be mean to him, his natural way of interacting with him is warmth and love and laughter. And it's kind of cool to see things come forward. It's like, oh wait, no, I can't. I'm not allowing myself to do that because he's actively trying to cut himself off from the person he's scared of losing the most. And I think that helped a little bit, that I wanted to just have fun with him so much, that I had to draw the boundary to actively decide not to, which I think is what Dustin is doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to talk about Volume 2.
Yeah,
because this was what I'd been waiting for ever since, like, you know, seeing them at odds. I was like, this reconciliation is going to mean a lot. It's going to hit really
inevitably,
hard.
Right.
But before we have that, we get that big blowout fight, like, in the basement. We were just cutting each other so deep. Tell me about shooting that, because that seems like you can't be having fun before that.
You can't. Throughout the day, I don't know, because I've kind of changed the way I approach doing scenes where there's a lot of pressure on them, because there's always one or two before a season starts where they're like, hey, just so you know, this one's going to be a little bit tougher, so we'll let you know when we're planning on doing it so you can prep for it. And I was always like, great, I'm going to wake up that morning ready to go, and I'm not going to think about it. But then you realize you still have the whole day. You're getting coverage, you're probably filming other things, and so you're kind of, if you're just locked into that space the whole day, eventually it comes around to it and you're just spent and you're kind of just, your energy is wasted. If you want tears are not the way to go about it. But especially early on, I'm like, if I don't cry, I'm not doing this right. And that's not a fun mentality to have. And I don't think, like, a lot of times tears don't even service a scene like that. So in prior seasons, I would put a lot of pressure. But that day, I remember, felt very normal until about like 20 minutes before we started shooting, and then you can take your time to go into, sometimes I just like wander around in a corner with headphones on, just to, not really to like build up any emotions or anything like that, but kind of just weirdly get like the head fog out of it and just be at a neutral place, because then you can kind of be open to discovering what happens. There are a lot of different takes. There are takes where we're crying before the fight. There are takes where we're even angrier, and there's takes where it's kind of just at a neutral tone, where we're just saying these things to each other and then seeing how naturally like it kind of digs in. And they took a lot from each of them, which is they pieced together from different places. And I think both of us were a little nervous, but then the actual fight is just purely choreographed for safety.
Yeah.
So everything is hyper choreographed for it.
I was going to say that one looked, I mean, that was one of those fights where it was choreographed, obviously, but it also felt like, again, messy.
It feels like, messy.
Yeah,
that's
as
the
it
goal.
should.
He does a really good, I call him choreographer. He's a stunt coordinator, and he works with the fight in the first episode and the fight throughout the whole show. But there was something he knew there that I can't feel like a you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really what it is. It's just a complete unleashing of pent up energy and rage. That's not really at Steve, I don't think. At least in the moment, I didn't think it was. And what I really do love about that fight is that he, if I remember properly, he never swings at me once.
No.
He never hits me once. Everything he does is to get me away from him. Like, he does, like, push me against a wall and push me away from him because I'm actively trying to hurt him. And I think the kicker of that is that I do punch him in the face, which is very different from, like, the, like, little brother, like, SWAT fight that it kind of begins as, of, like, literally throwing toys and, like, thrashing the way little brothers fight with their older brothers. And then when we go through the window, there's an actual, like, punch to the jaw. And then that's where he draws the line and ends it right there. Because it's very clear, like, there's no fight there. If he wanted to absolutely
Steve could
knock me into the next room, he could have. Yeah. And that's just never his intention there. And that's why, even as much as I've hurt him throughout the year, he just always keeps his composure. And that's really cool. He says some hurtful things, for sure, but everybody tends to.
Yeah.
And I really like that that's how it goes down. That it's him kind of just confused and hurt by what's going on rather than actually engaged in the fight himself.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I thought it was like really good. I mean, obviously there's a lot of action in the show, but this is one of those moments where it was very grounded and felt real, and also, again, very character motivated. Like,
cool.
I think there's a part where he like kind of hugs you to stop you, like, and I was just like, that hurt.
Also
like,
headlocks me.
He's like, it does feel very brotherly. And then, I mean, well, you did mention the episode 1 fight where I was like, Dustin is throwing hands with everybody this season. He's going crazy. But that fight feels like it kind of sets the tone for some of the other sequences we get, because it's a one shot. And like,
that being in one shot was awesome.
Yeah,
I remember
tell me about that.
Well, we rehearsed for like 2 days, and a lot of the actors in the scene specifically are actors on Hito's stunt team. So they are stunt actors themselves who also act on screen in a lot of stuff that they do. And we rehearsed for like 2 days, and Nick, our camera op, saw what was being recorded of it and was just convinced that he could do it in one. Nick, our op, has the camera, and then he just kind of pieced together what was most important at what point, and just kind of follows it around very nicely, and probably rehearsed it like 2 or 3 times throughout the morning. And then we shot it throughout the day. And it being in one, I think, was really, really cool and ambitious, and just a testament to Nick's skill. And Nick, he was a dancer for a very long time as well. So not only is he just incredibly strong, but has a cadence of a dancer when he films, of like placing his feet very correctly and kind of moving with a rhythm that's really engaging and fun to watch. And he also filmed the Master of Puppets sequence on top of the trailer in the 4th season. He's a very talented guy. Yeah, no, that sequence, the Master of Puppets, and then the fight scene also, I was... same guy did both of those. That was super cool. Yeah. I love like the flask shake kind of, or like blinding everybody. Yeah, it's sick with the paint thinner. Yeah. That was water. Cool.
It was just water? Okay, great. I didn't know if they were like, well, we'll add liquid in post, or were you actually...
It's lemon juice. It's pure lemon juice in Clay's face.
They're all just like,
they're like, damn, dude.
Yeah, method. But I do, I do want to come back to Steve because again, in volume 2, we get that reconciliation, like the don't die, like I can't have it happen again.
Classic.
Yeah,
classic, right?
Yeah. So I'd love to hear about
scene pisses me off.
But what?
I was so scared of it the whole time. I remember the whole season. I was like, I read at the table and I was like, oh great, it's one of those. And I was like, I guess we saw it coming. You know it's inevitable, but it just stressed me out for the whole season leading up.
How late in the shoot did it come? Was it?
Probably around. We weirdly shot kind of chronologically for all that stuff. So, well, we block shoot. So you film from like episodes 1 and 2, and then later on down the line when like directors had to swap in because they were doing different episodes, it kind of like scattered around. But that was probably 3/4 of the way through.
Whoa. So you do have like all that build up to go
Yeah,
to it.
for sure. There was a lot of time before going into it.
Yeah. That shot of the two of you guys hugging has frankly, every time I like see anything Stranger Things related, they're like, oh my God, they're about to die in this scene.
Right.
We can say that they don't die in that scene.
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah, they don't die in that scene.
They're alive.
Yes.
But yeah, again, I mean, I know you say that you don't like look at things, but
Not
are you
much.
aware of the impact that shot has had?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was immediately the minute they saw us hugging. A hug really does it for discourse online. Let me say, like, anytime there's a hug in a trailer, they're like, oh, they're grieving a death. I'm like, maybe. I don't think, that's not where my brain necessarily goes. But people seem to like, because I thought it was interesting they put it in the trailer. I think it's, for sure. It seems like, it definitely shows you that what they're building. I guess that is they show it in the trailer for the whole show because it is in part 2.
Yeah.
But it was in the first trailer too. And so people know going in that hug is coming, and it kind of became a staple of the trailer that people kind of clung on to. It was like what the context of it was, and you don't really see in part 1. So then people are even more scared about what it's going to look like. But they do know that at least they get to a point where they are close enough again to feel that is appropriate to hug each other in whatever context that might be. So I'm curious to see if that's something people are like relieved about after watching part 1, or if they're even more scared. I don't really know.
Yeah, because there was a feeling of, you see this with Jonathan and Nancy too. I was convinced. Of course. I was convinced. I was like, oh my God, this is it. After they have their big confession scene, I was like, oh, they're gone.
And they're dead. Yeah.
And then they're not. And I was like, oh, that's great. That feels like a nice resolution.
Right.
And what comes after, maybe death.
Who knows?
Yeah, like who knows, right?
Who knows?
But it is very fun.
I know.
You know.
But
you can't
won't say.
Yeah.
Right.
But I love how the fans are always like, okay, well, this person is happy, so they're immediately dead.
I think people read in. I love that people are engaged to little pieces. But anytime you take a little microcosm out of context, you can kind of just go off the rails. And half the time, parts of those trailers that people really cling to are pretty inconsequential when you actually see them. It may, like, half the time, the reason the trailer shot is in is just because it looks cool.
Yeah,
and
a lot
that's
of it looks
fun.
sick.
A lot of it just looks sick, and they're like, "Why'd you put that in there?" Like, oh man, I remember there was someone like sent this to me of people being like, "Sadie's wearing white at all of her press releases. Yeah. This means that everybody else is dead." And she like, I think it's just because she like that's just what she came up with. It is like people reading into like what we're doing in our daily lives, thinking it has a reflection into what the outcomes of the show are. That there's like weird little choices that we're making in the press tours that are like Easter eggs. I wish that we were that organized.
They think that you're like Taylor Swift level Easter
that there's little subliminal messaging into everything we do on a day-to-day when promoting the show, which I'm not privy to if it's happening. But I find that funny and cool and engaging, but also that can lead to people being ultimately like disappointed that it didn't come to the climax they expected because they put so much time and energy and thought into what little things might mean. I think that happened with Star Wars a bunch.
Oh yeah.
Of like when everyone was like, "Oh, who is she related to?"
And then
it came to a point where it was like, "Hey, no one," and everyone was like, "What?" Like, yeah, but no, you're the ones who said that. You're the ones who started the whole "who she related to" conversation. And maybe if you didn't, you would have been disappointed by That, and then it felt like damage control afterwards.
Yeah, it certainly did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a similar thing. This for season 4, this was like a little pet peeve of mine. Was everyone was like
please.
the guidance counselor. They were like, she's in league with Vecna because she's wearing like a clock necklace.
Please chill out.
And I was
Take a breath.
I love that everyone is doing close readings.
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
It's great. They're engaging with the text.
Ridiculous.
And then this season, everyone was like, Eddie's going to come back, and I was like, no. And then truly the part where Max was, we just saw her shoes. I was like, I swear, if it's Eddie.
You thought it was Eddie?
No. Well,
you were just scared.
I was scared because,
yes.
like, I was very adamant at the end of season 4. I was like, of course, no, he's gone, and we all miss him, etc.
Very much so. That's the point.
It's the point of it, and like it cheapens it to bring him back. Yeah, but so when that happened, like, sometimes I look through like forums and stuff where people are like, okay, this person, and they called Kali, like,
yes.
they called her, and I was
right.
like, that would be sick if that's true. But there were people who were like, Eddie has to come back, and so I was like, oh.
Guys.
But, yeah.
I don't know if it's just in the cards there. I think that really does just lower stakes across the board if you can just actually physically watch someone die and then it'd be like, nope.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if that's oh man, that would be tough. But also you can't really control how people approach that. That's cool. Like that also shows just how incredible Quinn's performance was throughout the year, that people latched on to and just hoped and weirdly went through their own grieving and like denial that he was ever really going to, like, no, he's not, there's no way. Yeah. And that's really fun and cool. And also Matt and Ross specifically said, like, before part 1 came out, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's gone. And people were like, but this means he's not.
Yeah.
You're fooling us.
He could be undead.
Anything you say is just fuel for the opposite argument. Because they're like, it's reverse psychology. And I think Joe actually played with that a little bit when people asked him. I think he was like,
fun.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's just cheeky.
And he's going to keep the people coming back.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta.
Well, I do want to talk, we mentioned this a little earlier, but you get to do the big exposition bomb about the abyss.
Big exposition bomb.
You get to tell everyone about this other world.
I always get the exposition bomb.
So well, how do you feel when you read that? Are you like, as a viewer and as an enjoyer of the show, are you like, oh my god, this is crazy, and then you're like, what do I got to do?
I have to prep for it. I know that Matt and Ross were very keen. They taught specifically like, hey, this is like the kicker. This news is the kicker for like the show and like everything, like, because even in the trailer shot for part 2, it's like everything we thought about the Upside Down.
I was shocked that they showed
wrong.
the exotic
I was like,
matter.
oh, they showed it.
Yeah,
I was also shocked they showed the exotic matter. I'm like, hey, go for it. Whatever, because also it's so bizarre that there's no context as to like what possibly that could be. Because in my brain, I'm like, oh, they spoiled it, but I'm like, oh, but they don't know, that crazy monologue that comes up. Anytime I read something like that, I think it's because I'm learning in real time at the table read as I read it, I cold read the monologue, and that's really fun. And then I'm like, oh boy, that's a lot of pressure there. Because the hard part there is Dustin understands it, but nobody else in the room really does. And I'm assuming people watching the show will have a hard time understanding all of these. I've always said I'm playing a character that is tremendously smarter than I am. And so if I can get to a point where what I'm saying makes sense to me, then I think it'll make sense for most people because I know nothing about theoretical physics at all.
Yeah, same.
Or their interpretation of, or like, their sci-fi version of, I'm sure there's going to be physicists who are like,
whoa.
What? Yeah, for sure. It's sci-fi. It's just how it goes. It's really fun to do. I remember I get excited about memorizing big chunks because one thing that I think that a skill that I do acknowledge that I think I'm proud of saying that I can do pretty well is I can memorize pretty quickly. And I can hold on to longer chunks of dialogue, at least temporarily, pretty well. And so that was only a night before thing. I knew that it was coming up, and I don't want to over-memorize because then I sometimes forget to surprise myself when actually doing it, and it can feel over-rehearsed. And so a lot of times when I memorize, I just go in paragraph chunks, and then I'll like do it, read them out loud and not look, in chunks and paragraphs, and then do the paragraphs in reverse order, which is fun. And so that's my little memorization thingy. And I don't know why, that's what does it for me, but that's what I tend to do. And it was a good reminder on the day of like, man, not over memorize, but like very diligently memorizing takes a lot of weight off of your shoulders when you need to do it. Because there's also times where going in and kind of piecing it together as you move around, because I learn a lot and memorize through movement and blocking. Like if I can associate words with places that I am or with specific things that I'm doing with my body, that helps me a lot too. And I tend not to I usually memorize on the day as I get in, but that's one of those where you're just like, yeah, I better be ready to go. Weirdly enough, because I had a very embarrassing, there's a blooper of it in season 3 of me messing up a monologue to David Harbour. Frequency band to really, I love how I get it right when we rehearse.
Oh, mother.
And I was so embarrassed because I just kept messing it up. And I was like, David's in this scene. I can't do it again. And I don't know why. I was like, oh man, I want to prove that I can do it. And I remember this, after I finished up the monologue and did it, and was pretty good with it, everybody was like, hey, good job. And he passed me on the back. He goes, man, that was crazy. And I was like, oh, that's awesome that he said that. So I don't know if he knows that I valued that quite a lot. But yeah.
Full circle moment.
Yeah.